Close your eyes for a moment. Forget everything you know about Paris. Forget the Eiffel Tower. Forget the cafes, the fashion, the romance. Forget every photograph you have ever seen of this city. Now open them. What you are looking at is the real Paris. The Paris that existed before all of that. A city of 400,000 souls crammed into a medieval labyrinth of narrow streets, open sewers, and towering stone churches. A city that smelled of horse dung and baking bread and river mud. A city so alive, so violent, so magnificent, that it would change the entire world. This is Paris in the age of the Sun King, in the age of absolute power, in the age of philosophy, plague, and revolution. This is the city where the modern world was born, not gently, but in fire and fury and the blood of kings. Welcome to Paris, 1660. Let us begin. Before France had kings, before it had revolutions, there was this. Notre Dame, standing on this island since 1163, built not by machines, but by human hands. By men who would never live to see it finished, 182 years to build, and yet here she stands. In the 17th century, Notre Dame was not a monument. She was the spiritual heart of France. Kings bowed here, the criminals confessed here, and every Sunday, the poor, the hungry, the hopeful, packed into this nave seeking something no palace and no king could ever give them. Notre Dame did not belong to the people of Paris, but the people of Paris belonged to her. The streets surrounding the cathedral in this era were nothing like the open plaza you see today. They were a maze. Dark, narrow alleyways pressed right up against the cathedral walls. Fishmongers, candlemakers, tooth pullers, fortune tellers, all of them living and working in the shadow of something eternal, something they looked at every day of their lives, perhaps never truly saw. That is the extraordinary thing about living alongside greatness. You stop noticing it until the day it is gone. 1661, a 22-year-old king made a decision that would define France for the next 100 years. That would consume the treasury of an entire nation. That would awe every foreign power on earth, and ultimately help to destroy the very monarchy it was built to glorify. Louis XIV looked at Paris, vast, chaotic, stinking, magnificent Paris, and decided it was not enough. He would build something the world had never seen. Not just a palace, a universe, Versailles. It took 49 years to build, 49 years of continuous construction. At its peak, over 20,000 workers labored on this site simultaneously. Thousands of them died from accidents, from disease, from the sheer brutal scale of what was being demanded of human bodies. Louis buried the reports. He didn't want to hear about it. He was busy designing a fountain. The finished palace contained 2,000 rooms, 800 hectares of formal gardens, 150 fountains fed by a canal system that took 15 years alone to engineer. When foreign ambassadors arrived at Versailles for the first time, they were deliberately walked through a carefully choreographed sequence of increasingly opulent rooms, each one more extraordinary than the last, before finally being brought into the Hall of Mirrors. 357 panels of glass, 20,000 candles, 73 meters of golden reflection stretching into forever. Ambassadors went silent. Some reportedly fainted. That was entirely the point. Every centimeter of Versailles communicated one single message, whispered in gold and crystal and marble. There is no power on earth greater than France, and there is no man on earth greater than Louis. But Versailles was also Louis's greatest and most fatal mistake. By moving his entire court 20 kilometers outside Paris, away from the city, away from his people, he built a wall between the crown and reality. A wall made of gardens and chandeliers and powdered wigs. Inside Versailles, the court played. They danced. They gossiped. They spent fortunes on clothing that cost more than a working family would earn in 10 years. Outside, in Paris, people were hungry. That distance, that gap, between the king's golden table and the empty plates of his subjects, it grew wider every year. And within a century, it would cost the French monarchy everything. Every great city is defined by its water. London has the Thames, Rome has the Tiber, and Paris has the Seine. But the Seine is more than a river. It is the reason Paris exists at all. Long before Louis XIV, long before Notre Dame, long before any king of France had drawn a first breath, there was an island in the middle of this river. A small, low, easily defended island surrounded by slow, dark water. Around 250 BC, a Celtic tribe called the Parisi paddled their boats to this island and decided to stay. They called it Lutetia. We call it the Ile de la Cité. And from that single decision to stop on that particular island, on that particular river, everything that followed would eventually grow. Notre Dame, the Louvre, Versailles, the Revolution, Napoleon, the modern world. In the 17th century, the Seine was not beautiful, not in the way we imagine it today. Lovers on bridges, sunset reflections, wine, and poetry. The Seine was a working river, a filthy, essential, roaring artery of commerce and survival. Every single thing that Paris needed to survive arrived by water. Grain from the countryside, wine from Burgundy, timber for building, coal for heat, livestock for slaughter, stone for the endless construction that never seemed to stop. Hundreds of flat-bottomed wooden barges worked this river every day of the year. In winter, they broke ice to keep the lanes open. In summer, they fought the current and each other for the best mooring spots. The men who controlled this river, the marchands de l'eau, the water merchants, held enormous political power over Paris. Generations before the revolution, these men understood something that kings would learn too late. Whoever feeds a city controls it. Whoever controls the food controls everything else. Every city has a building that comes to mean something larger than itself. A building that stops being just stone and mortar and starts being an idea, a symbol, a feeling. For Paris, for 2 centuries, that building was the Bastille. 8 towers, a moat of dark water, walls 4 meters thick at the base, built originally to defend the city's eastern gate from English invasion during the 100 Years' War. It was repurposed by French kings into something far more sinister, a prison, but not just any prison, a royal prison, a place where enemies of the crown, real enemies, imagined enemies, inconvenient enemies, could be made to simply disappear. No trial, no charges, no defense. The king signed a document called a lettre de cachet, a sealed royal letter. Your name was written on it, and that was enough. Guards arrived at your door, you were taken, and you vanished into those towers as completely as if the earth had swallowed you. Some prisoners spent decades inside the Bastille without ever being told why they were there. Think about that. Waking up every morning in a stone cell, scratching marks into the wall to count the days, watching the small square of sky through a barred window change from summer to winter to summer to winter again, not knowing the charge against you, not knowing if anyone outside these walls even remembered your name. Writers, philosophers, nobles who asked the wrong question at the wrong dinner. Anyone the crown found inconvenient could be swallowed by those 8 towers. The Bastille became the physical, visible, unmistakable symbol of everything the people of Paris hated about royal power. Which is precisely why, when the revolution finally came, it was the very first thing they destroyed. The summer of 1789, Paris was breaking. Not slowly, not gradually. It was breaking all at once, under the accumulated weight of decades of royal excess, failed harvests, financial collapse, and a government so disconnected from its people that it had stopped being able to see them at all. Bread prices had risen to historic highs. A single loaf now cost a working family nearly a full day's wages. People were choosing between eating and heating their homes. Children were hungry, and the king, Louis X, sat in Versailles 20 kilometers away, surrounded by courtiers in silk, eating from golden plates. The treasury was empty, bankrupted by the cost of building Versailles, bankrupted by the cost of funding the American Revolution, a war Louis had backed hoping to weaken Britain, not understanding that the ideas it unleashed would come home to destroy him. Then on July 11th, 1789, Louis dismissed his most popular finance minister, the one man ordinary Parisians believed was fighting for them, and the city snapped. On the morning of July 14th, something extraordinary began to happen on the streets of Paris. People started to gather, not in 2s and 3s, in hundreds, then thousands. They came from the market stalls and the tanneries and the print shops and the taverns. They came with whatever they had in their hands, pikes and pitchforks and old muskets and kitchen knives. They came angry and hungry and completely finally done. They marched to the Bastille. They said they wanted the gunpowder stored inside. They said they wanted the prisoners freed. But what they really wanted, what every person in that crowd felt in their chest without being able to name it, was to tear that building down with their bare hands, to destroy the thing it represented, to prove once and for all that the power of a king was not, in fact, absolute, that it had limits, and that the people of Paris were the limit. The battle lasted less than 4 hours. The governor of the Bastille surrendered. He was dragged into the street. He was beheaded. His head was placed on a pike and carried through the streets of Paris. And the city, this ancient, exhausted, magnificent, furious city, erupted. Church bells rang from every parish simultaneously. The sound rolled across Paris like a wave. People poured into the streets, weeping and screaming and embracing strangers. The news was carried by horse and by foot across France in every direction. The people had risen. The king's fortress had fallen. And nothing would ever be the same again. When Louis VI was told what had happened that evening, he turned to his aide and asked, quietly, "Is it a revolt?" The aide looked at him and replied, "No, sire, it is a revolution." Before Versailles existed, before Louis XIV decided that Paris was beneath him, the kings of France lived here. The Louvre, a fortress first built in 1190 to defend the city while the king went on crusade. Then expanded, rebuilt, beautified over 5 centuries into one of the grandest royal palaces in Europe. By the 17th century, it was a vast complex of apartments, galleries, ceremonial halls, and royal workshops, home to thousands of people who lived their entire lives within its walls serving the crown. Louis XVI was born here, in a candlelit chamber in the Old Wing, on a September night in 1638. He lived here until 1682, when he packed his court, his furniture, his favorite paintings, and his entire apparatus of government into carriages and moved the whole extraordinary circus 20 kilometers down the road to Versailles. The Louvre was left behind. Artists moved into the empty royal apartments. Academics set up workshops in the galleries. The greatest art collection in France, which had hung in private royal rooms for a century, was slowly, almost accidentally, opened to a broader audience. The palace that housed the most absolute power in Europe quietly became something more lasting, a place where the work of human hands, not the will of kings, would be preserved forever. Paris in the 17th and 18th centuries was a city of impossible, painful, magnificent contradictions, the most beautiful architecture in the world, built on the backs of people who could not afford bread. A king of unimaginable power who could not see the catastrophe walking toward him through his own palace gardens. Streets full of philosophy and art and music, and underneath it all, running through every alley and every tavern and every hungry household, fury. Quiet, patient, growing fury. It did not come from abstract ideas about liberty and equality. It came from here, from these specific streets, these specific bridges, these market stalls with empty shelves, these locked palace gates and golden dinner tables and stone prison towers. It came from people who woke up one morning and found they had simply had enough. And in having enough, they changed everything. The French Revolution sent a shockwave across the entire Western world. It toppled not just one monarchy, but the idea of monarchy itself. It planted the words liberty, equality, and fraternity into the political vocabulary of every nation that came after. It showed, for the first time in modern history, that the power of ordinary people, united and furious and willing to march into cannon fire, was greater than the power of any king. Paris paid an enormous price for that lesson, in blood, in chaos, in years of terror that followed the revolution's first pure flame. But Paris survived, as it always had, as it always would. The city we know today, its grand boulevards, its culture, its stubborn, beautiful identity, was forged right here, in this era, not gently, in fire and fury, and the unstoppable force of people who decided that enough was enough. If this journey through history moved you, subscribe, because we are only just beginning. Next time we walk the streets of ancient Rome, at the height of its power, at the edge of its fall, we will see you there.